What's wrong?
Nothing. Look! You can only see them from certain latitudes down there. But up here, we can see the whole...
Yep, that was one of the most twisted ways to ever start a story about Shadow and Maria. Fake out Shadow and Maria running out of fear, but then make it so that Maria is just trying to show Shadow how cool the Earth looks. What is your god-dang malfunction, Ian Flynn?
Eggman Empire. Authorization approved. Access granted.
What is happening, sluts and men? My name is KotyTang. What an exciting episode we were presented with. This is some of the best animation and possibly even the best acting the games have ever received. Except for Kirk Thornton. He is definitively one of the worst casting choices for Shadow.
Black Doom. I destroyed you once. I will do it again.
Great actor, but I really want to meet the group of people that heard Kisame Hoshigaki and was like, oh my god, he sounds just like Shadow the Hedgehog.
You're a might guy, huh? Mighty stupid looking guy.
Even just from this episode alone, we have so much that we can theorize and question about the story. Could these 3 episodes possibly turn out to be some of Ian Flynn's best writing? I genuinely don't have any complaints on the visuals or how anything sounds. Which, sure, usually the games do have fun and beautifully animated intros these days, but there's something different about it not being really colorful and fun. We're given the rare opportunity to see the darker shades of the franchise, which is always a treat. And of course, it's in relation to Shadow, who still stands today as a useful reminder that this franchise has some very, very dark moments. This style of writing is exactly what I have always wanted the franchise to return to. These long, sprawling, detailed, and varied narratives that explore all of these characters and who they really are. It's a thing that's always been unique and special to the fans of the Sonic franchise. Something that we've all been robbed of for far too long. And who better to bring us all back to a time when Sonic meant more than just a hedgehog who runs fast, than Sonic's greatest and most in-depth rival of all time, Shadow the Hedgehog. When I first saw the teaser, I picked up on several things that we'll be getting into, but I wanted to point out a major thing I thought about. At first in the teaser, I could tell that Shadow was in some sort of simulation. And thanks to this episode, my suspicions have been proven correct. However, it isn't a simulation, it's something far worse. Black Doom has full control over Shadow's mind. Of course, Shadow can resist this. However, to be caught off guard by a Black Doom that fully remembers the events of Shadow 05?
We meet again, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, good luck dealing with that one, Shadow. That's why he's going to be able to force Shadow to awaken these sleeping Black Arm's abilities. If we jump back to Shadow 05, you'll see a very interesting ability that Black Doom possesses. See, Black Doom is actually able to take a jump into Shadow's mind and have him relive events of his past. We haven't seen him do it to the degree of Dark Beginnings, but he was able to show Shadow the exact moment that Maria got shot by Gun and have Shadow experience that event out of body. He was able to make Shadow witness that as though he was a spectator in those events. As we can see at the very end of this nightmare, Shadow is forced into the dark clouds that originally surrounded the Earth in Shadow 05, and we end it all with Black Doom's eyes opening and his hands stretching out to grab Shadow before he wakes up. Black Doom is evidently who Shadow is referring to as he looks back up at the Ark and asks if he is still alive. So, yeah. What we watched was not just flashes of memories from Shadow. It was a deliberate attack on Shadow's mind, orchestrated by Black Doom. Of course, a bit of continuity check, as we gotta do. In Sonic Generations, the emerald you get from Shadow is indeed the yellow one, and that same emerald is seen in Dark Beginnings. Yeah, okay, they did their homework for this little tidbit. Although I do have to wonder now, if this Shadow is even the same Shadow as that one. Could there possibly be two Shadows running around in the Time Meter space? I mean, I guess that actually would make sense, wouldn't it? But then which one is going to follow Sonic back to the original timeline? Or will they all converge together in the end? I'm sure that won't be answered, but it's interesting to think about. Here's what I find to be one of the most interesting pieces of possible confirmation. This is the most direct we've ever been shown that Shadow has possibly managed to remember everything about his past following his recovery from amnesia.
No. This isn't right. The soldiers. They storm the Ark, destroy all evidence. But it's too soon. It's happening too quickly.
In Shadow's own game, by the time the ending rolls around, it was very likely that he only remembered certain aspects. Specifically, only the parts that he was shown or continued to have flashes about. But in Dark Beginnings, it's possibly revealed that Shadow remembers every detail of his life from 50 years ago. From his coexistence with Emerald, to the length of time he was with Maria before Gunn raided the Ark. And of course, we knew that he remembered the details of Maria's death and the promise he made to her. Although Shadow has moved on from his past, Dark Beginnings may be displaying that this is still the same Shadow from 50 years ago, as he remembers all of it. This would actually mean that his attitude and hatred toward everybody is a very deliberate decision that he ultimately decided that he should stick with. Of course, if we bring in the fact that Black Doom is playing with his mind, it's possible that he's just pulling these memories out of Shadow. Memories that even Shadow may not have even remembered at all. On the topic of personality, I'd actually like to dive into that as well. This attitude that Shadow is displaying while he's with Maria, to me feels entirely contradictory to the Shadow that we were presented in Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow 05.
I don't know if there's a place for me on Earth. Professor Gerald made me the ultimate life form. I should be the key to all manner of medicines.
In Sonic Adventure 2, we were shown that Shadow and Maria quite literally have the same level of curiosity and degree of questioning. Shadow ponders what his purpose is, even showing that he wants to find a reason for his existence.
The professor said his life's work was dedicated to all of those who live down there. He once told that the reason for his existence was making people happy through the power of science.
Shadow.
Maria, I just don't know anything anymore. I often wonder why I was created, what my purpose is for being here. Maybe if I go down there, I will find the answers. Maybe.
He's not brooding or somebody that's hurt. And of course, in Shadow 05, when we see Shadow and Maria interact, Shadow has this powerful devotion to protecting the Ark, the scientists within it, and of course, Maria and Gerald.
The research lab, it's going to be destroyed. Something must be done. Please, Shadow, I beg you, help Grandfather and those aboard the Ark. Please.
I'll be there, Maria. I swear, whatever it takes. I'll take care of the Ark and the Professor.
It of course evolves into the entire essence of Maria that is later embedded into Shadow in the form of a promise that they make together for Shadow to protect the world and the people on the planet.
For all people who live on that planet, give them a chance to be happy. Let them live for their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world.
However, in Dark Beginnings, we're shown that Shadow has always been a solemn, depressed, and melancholic person. The impression I've always gotten from going into the past is that Shadow only became that way due to what Gerald did to him, and then his amnesia transforming his personality even further by mixing the old and new Shadow. My understanding was that the Shadow from 50 years ago only looked intimidating in appearance, but in reality he was a kind and even gentle person. If this attitude of Shadow's is the same as he had today, even his level of combat prowess against Emerald, then I have to wonder how it was possible for the gun soldiers to overwhelm him and even end up successfully shooting Maria. If he was the kind Shadow that I thought he was, The violence was what he was running away from. He didn't want to hurt people. Unless he had to, of course. But if that sentiment isn't true and the shadow of today is the same shadow of yesterday, then this frightening figure filled with anger with the ability to single-handedly clear a room in seconds, it just doesn't seem possible at all that he failed to save Maria. I think a much deeper exploration of Shadow is entirely required at this point. There are definitely events that could have happened that caused Maria's death, but definitely not in the simple way that it was always portrayed in the past. They're running through a hallway and then she gets shot instead of Shadow turning around and taking out the opposition. It's even more confusing why he would force Maria to run behind him rather than carry her. As we've seen in this episode, making Maria run like that may actually kill her in itself, not the bullet. This is another reason I say it's possible that this can all be explained through it being some sort of simulation. I think that Shadow is merely reliving these moments and he's forgetting that none of it is real, so he's acting like how he would today, but he's being placed into situations from his past. Let me explain how the simulation by Black Doom can possibly be playing a role. Throughout the episode, there seem to be triggers that put Shadow back into the role of who he was back then. I believe that the Shadow we first see is the Shadow from 50 years ago, up until the point where Maria talks about going to Earth. Then he flips back to present day Shadow. Notice his demeanor switches as he dips into his trauma and remembers one of the crowning features of being the ultimate life form. After Maria asks Shadow to help Gerald and she grabs his hand, he's smacked with a vision of Gunn. Maybe even a deliberate distortion of Doom's nightmare, and that resets his brain into becoming the Shadow from 50 years ago. Again, notice Shadow's demeanor switch. Now he's back to being the protector of the Ark. After the fight with Emerald, he snaps out of Doom's nightmare and realizes the events are wrong and happening way too fast. Afterward, Shadow comes face to face with a chained up Gerald, and he's hit with yet another distortion, resetting his personality, and he seems to become oblivious to the fact that Gerald has been imprisoned by Gunn already, something that present day Shadow would immediately recognize. Even the traumatic gunshot with Maria resets Shadow again until he wakes up from the nightmare. It's as though Shadow keeps switching between who he is now and who he was 50 years ago unintentionally, which could be very indicative of just how much Black Doom truly has control over him. But that's just my theory. Again, it's entirely possible that Sega is trying to show us that Shadow's always been a melancholic, trauma-filled guy. Seeing Gunn once again was obviously going to happen since Maria and Gerald are involved, but it still feels like I'm being pulled back into the 2000s and picking up right where the story left off originally as the true story of Sonic the Hedgehog returns and we can finally progress. We're no longer locked into this vague, episodic hell we've been subjected to. Dark Beginnings makes it feel like we can once again finally progress these characters and stop them from just being tropes. We're actually exploring the character of Shadow the Hedgehog in 2024. That kind of doesn't even feel real to say, considering how long we've been away from what everybody recognizes these characters to be. The last bit of continuity I want to add in is Emerald. While of course it's entirely possible that both Shadow and Emerald coexisted, I do have to wonder just how much of a relationship they truly had together, if they even had anything at all. It just always felt to me like Emerald was a separate thing from Shadow, but revolved around kind of the same concept. As though Emerald was a forgotten and dismissed project, and Shadow was the new and current project. Since of course we can't tack on the personalities embedded into Emerald through the events of Sonic Battle, we have essentially nothing to go off of here. Can Emerald speak? Who is he taking after? Is he taking after anybody at all? How long has he been on the Ark? And how long has he even been active? Maria mentions that robot, so it's possible this is literally the first time he's ever been seen. It's entirely possible that Emerald was kept a secret from anyone who wasn't working on the Gizoid project. It's again just some lore that they throw out there that I would really love for them to actually explore in detail. Even if Shadow's character in Sonic Battle literally could never happen, it's still a piece of Sonic lore. Unexplored Sonic lore specifically. I also want to add that I don't think Shadow is out of Doom's nightmare. The very last shot is yet another distortion before we roll the credits. I have a very strong feeling that all of these episodes take place in Black Doom's nightmare for Shadow. If you even really look at the scene, the closeness of the Ark and the moon, it just seems so unnatural. I also want to call to attention these two shots specifically. It may be a stretch, but the destruction of the moon actually mirrors where Maria got shot, and the loose rocks around it seem to represent her blood as it does in this horrific scene. Which, can I also just say, this scene of Maria getting shot is fucking incredible. Sometimes not directly showing something ends up being more horrific than the actual thing that happened. You can fully imagine in your mind the exact location where Maria got shot. Something that we've actually never seen. And the details that follow that, you can just imagine how it truly played out in Maria's final moments. Although it's likely all a simulation made by Black Doom, I do still absolutely love the layout of the moon. It's a surreal artistic decision that calls back to the chaotic and unnatural design of Sonic's Earth in its earlier days. The world of Sonic has wacky shit like this going on pretty much all the time. It also gives a sort of recontextualization for the moon when it was shot by Eggman. An enormous hole on the side and the gravity creating a ring around it from the destroyed parts. It's something that, honestly, would only make sense in a universe like Sonic's. Something else I find interesting is that Shadow sparks up whenever he runs. This is not something he's ever done. However, it is something he and Sonic do in the Paramount movie. Sonic also ended up doing this in Sonic Frontiers, and in both cases, we can connect it to a gameplay mechanic. With Sonic's being cyber energy, and if we connect Dark Beginnings to Sonic and Shadow Generations, Shadow does in fact spark up in connection to Black Doom's power. Even now when he runs, he has a streak of yellow lightning behind him. This further emphasizes my theory that all three of these episodes are entirely fake and take place in Shadow's mind, in a world created by Black Doom, and it may even link into the games where everything around Shadow is all a result of Black Doom and not anything the Time Eater is doing. The fact that Black Doom can play Shadow in a moment of time and make him directly fight Emerald means that he can do that with anything Shadow has ever experienced. And I think we even do see that level of distortion inside of the trailer. Black Doom is always messing with what Shadow is doing at all times. It is questionable just how much is the Time Eater working directly with Black Doom. Or is it actually that Black Doom is somehow able to utilize the powers of the Time Eater itself and mix those with Shadow's memories? Questions like those can only be answered in the game, but I do want to see just how far we're going to go with these episodes and just what type of secrets will be revealed the further we get in. I have so many thoughts that I want to get into, but I don't want to just theorize all day long based off one episode. I'll have even more to say when episode 2 comes out, and of course when we have all three, the bigger picture can hopefully be revealed to us, and we let the game provide the finality of those questions and answers. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord from the description or the pinned comment, and finally, don't forget to share your own thoughts in the comments below.